If you've ever found yourself staring at a German sentence, just completely baffled by why the word the seems to change all the time, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to crack the code on German cases. So let's just dive right in. Der, then, dem. Look, it's one of the first huge hurdles for pretty much anyone learning German, right? It can feel totally random, super confusing, but I promise you, by the end of this, you'll see there's a really clear logic behind it all. It's not just about what a noun is, it's about what that noun does in a sentence. So, what even is a case? You know, the easiest way to think about it is like a job description for a noun. A case literally tells you the role that noun is playing in the sentence. Is it doing the action? Is it receiving the action? That little article, the word for the, changes to give us a clue about its job. Okay, let's start with the boss of the sentence, the one calling the shots. This is the nominative case. It's the most basic one, and it's probably the first one you ever learned.
So the nominative's job is super simple. It just points out the subject. And the subject is the person or thing that is actively doing something. So whenever you're trying to find the nominative, the question you've got to ask is, who or what is doing the verb?
Let's take a look at a classic example here. Der Vater isst einen Apfel. So who's doing the eating? Well, the father is. He is the one doing the action. That makes der Vater our subject, which puts him right in the nominative case. Simple as that. And here's some really good news. The articles you use for the nominative case, they're just the default articles you learn with every single new noun. You know, der for masculine, die for feminine, and das for neuter. This is our home base, our starting point. Okay, so we have our doer. But what is the doer actually doing, and to what? This is what brings us to our second case, the Akkusativ. This case points out the direct object, or as I like to call it, the target of the action. The accusative case always answers the question what or whom in relation to what the subject is doing. Think of it this way. If the nominative is the person throwing the ball, the accusative is the ball itself. It's the thing that's directly getting that action. Let's go back to our father. Der Vater ist, the father eats what? He eats the apple. The apple is the target of the eating. It's being acted upon. That makes the apple our direct object, and that means it has to be in the accusative case. Okay, now look closely at this, because this is the single most important change you need to remember for this case. For the accusative, there is only one change you have to learn. The masculine article der becomes den. That's it. That is the big secret. And here's the best part. If your direct object is feminine or neuter, the article stays exactly the same as it was in the nominative. Seriously, die stays die and das stays das. So you've really already got 2/3 of it down. You just have to keep an eye out for those masculine nouns. So we've got a doer, that's our nominative, and a target, our accusative. But, you know, sometimes there's a third person involved, someone who kind of indirectly receives the action. This is where our third case, the dative, comes into play. The dative case points to the recipient of an action. It's always answering the question, to whom or for whom. So if the father, nominative, gives the chocolate, accusative, the dative is the person who is receiving that chocolate. Let's just build on our little story here. Der Vater gibt dem Kind die Schokolade. So the father gives the chocolate to whom? To the child. See, the child isn't being given, the chocolate is. The child is just the recipient. So dem Kind is our indirect object, and it's in the dative case. All right, now for the articles. As you can see right here in the dative case, everything changes. Masculine der and neuter das both become dem. And here's the really tricky one you have to watch out for. Feminine die actually becomes der. This little table is going to be your best friend. And yeah, the dative has one more little trick up its sleeve, and it's for plurals. The plural article die always changes to den, and you very often have to add an n to the end of the noun itself. This is an absolute must-know rule. For example, the Vater gibt den Kindern eine Schokolade. The plural of child is Kinder, but because they are the recipients, they're in the dative case, the article becomes den, and we add that n to the noun, which gives us den Kindern. See how that works? Okay, you've learned the three main roles, the doer, the target, and the receiver. So let's put that knowledge to the test and see if you can spot these roles in a couple of new sentences. You ready?
All right, check out this sentence. Die Lehrerin erklärt den Studenten die Grammatik. That means the teacher explains the grammar to the students. So, who is receiving the explanation? Who's our indirect object here in the dative case?
Yes, it's den Studenten.
Exactly. The teacher, that's the nominative, is explaining the grammar, the Akkusativ, to the students, our dativ. And you can see that plural dativ rule we just talked about right there, with den plus the en ending on Studenten. Okay, one more. In German, you might say, Kannst du dem Kind den Hamburger kaufen? Or, can you buy the hamburger for the child? Now, we have two objects in there. Which one is the target, the thing that's being directly acted upon?
You got it. It's den Hamburger. You are buying what? The hamburger. That's the direct object, so it's in the Akkusativ. And since Hamburger is a masculine noun, its article changes from der to den. Perfect. Dem Kind is the dative recipient.
So let's just recap this real quick. The key, really, is to stop trying to memorize a bunch of charts and start thinking in roles. The nominative is the doer, the accusative is the direct target, and the dative is the receiver. If you just ask these simple questions, who is acting, upon what, to whom, the German case system starts to feel less like a mystery and more like a logical, predictable map. By understanding the job of each noun, you've honestly unlocked one of the most fundamental concepts in all of German grammar. And this way of thinking, it doesn't just apply to articles, it applies to pronouns and adjectives too. So the real question is, now that you get it, what puzzle are you going to take on next?